friend of mine and someone with really unique experience. Not a lot of folks have his line of experience and his mindfulness and thoughtfulness around leadership in general. We have Dr. Bernardo here too. Rich, how are you? Doing well.
Pleasure to be
Great.
here. Pleasure. I'm looking forward to talking to Lloyd.
Excellent. So we have Lloyd Thrall here. Welcome, Lloyd. So to start, let's just a little bit tell us a little bit about yourself, our viewers a little bit about you, and then we'll get into your leadership style and your thoughts on innovation and leadership, and sort of the big picture of how you view leadership overall.
Oh, thanks, Al. I'm humbled to be here. Thanks for having me. My name's Lloyd Thrall. I've spent my life in the national security community of the United States, in and out of uniform, starting as an enlisted special operator in the Army, in the Ranger Regiment, moving on from there into the intelligence community, serving in places like Iraq. Afterwards, the Rand Corporation, where I did a fair amount of senior commentary and research on American foreign policy, and then concluding in government as a civilian two-star equivalent in the Obama administration, where I was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Force Readiness. That's a general officer equivalent position, advising the Secretary and the Congress, reporting to them at least quarterly on American foreign policy, on matters of strategy and force deployment. After that, I've moved back to Colorado, where I'm an academic. I'll be starting at the Air Force Academy this summer.
Excellent, great. Love that range of experience, and I've had many conversations with you just to learn about some of the things you've gone through, experience. Not a lot of people have just that White House experience alone, so it's pretty cool background that you have. So Lloyd, I was lucky enough to work with you in a leadership capacity for a short time, but enough to really get to know you well. So tell us a little bit about sort of your approach to leadership in general, how you kind of work with others, innovation in leadership. Like, what's your style? What does a guy with a military background but still has academic footing now too? So you have this really unique blend of military, academic, government, really interesting mix. How has that sort of shaped your leadership style? What is your leadership style for viewers?
Oh, that's kind of you. I hope I can do the military credit. It's funny. I saw something the other day about military service. It was a TED Talk that was very interesting, and the title of the TED Talk almost says it all. And the title was "Thank You for My Service." And what the guy was trying to say, it said very well, was that, hey, the military invested in me and gave to me at least as much as I gave to it. It was a wonderful background for me, particularly coming out of high school, 18 years old, having a whole lot of energy and not a whole lot of sense. The military, for obvious reasons, takes leadership very seriously. And it's a very old study. Not to put you too dramatic about it, but I don't think it's a stretch to say the principles of military leadership are millennia old. Humans have been in conflict for a long time, and they've needed the ability to lead humans in this very disorienting and dangerous, scary, and emotional place for a long time. So it's very much a study and a science in the military. I would say, there's a little bit of a caricature about military leadership that despite having served in the infantry and special operations, I didn't find, which is this notion that military leadership is about hierarchy and shouting. And I didn't find that. And I would say the statute of limitations on that, on its effectiveness, is pretty short, whether you're in the military or outside of it. Your ability to just shout at and sort of bludgeon people may or may not be effective in the short term, but I would put forth two thoughts. One, it's not going to be effective over the long term. And two, I don't know what you call that, but you don't call that leadership. Just one last thought on all of this, and then curious what you think. I think the military. I had the privilege to serve in special operations and in other contexts. There were really good leaders, and I think one thing is common that they do. They they give their organization an identity, and they give it a purpose. You are here, you are a part of this group and this team, and you belong to it, and it belongs to you. And we have a purpose. We are here for a reason. We are here to go do that. And if the leader can keep people in that mindset, then you really sort of become subsumed by your organization's performance rather than the sort of top of the pyramid. You're really sort of the chief facilitator of its excellence rather than your own.
So in the military, that is the standard. That is what happens in most, according to you, happens in most areas, that you're here for a purpose, and it's pretty straightforward as far as what that is, and everybody on the team aligns to that. As you know, as I know, as Rich, you know, in academia, in the corporate world, outside of that, ambiguity comes in, right? A lot of ambiguity. And people that don't have such, like you said, it's almost a gift, that military leadership background and the structure around it. Seems like it's a gift based on my friendship with you and others that served in the military, because you take that with you. And I don't want to put words in your mouth if that's not true. But how is that leadership really the backbone, right? I think that's really sort of shaped your leadership style. How has that evolved into a world where people are ambiguous in nature? The purpose is not necessarily clearly defined. Like, what do you do to sort of mix with the real world, so to speak, in a leadership capacity? And I've seen you done it, but do it at CU. But I'd love to hear you articulate that if you can.
Tell me what you think. I mean, I think the good and the bad news, and this is going to sound, I don't mean this in a self-congratulatory way. I mean, I was the beneficiary of the military's excellence in this area. But the good and the bad news, I think, is you get to see leadership distilled and done well. And then that leaves an imprint on you where you go elsewhere. And certainly there are times where you're disappointed in the leadership that you're seeing. Two things come to mind in the academic context. One is that I think people tend to poo-poo the notion of their mission statement. And to me, those are the most critical words you're going to write down as a leader in conversation with your leadership and with your team, in terms of what are we about? And when you're in that ambiguity, all these different things you could pursue, all these different things that you could attempt, all these different things that have relative degrees of value, and yet you're forced to make calls, right? You have to lead, which means you have to make decisions. Leadership is about choices. And when you choose something, you're choosing away from something else. You're saying no to something to say yes to something else. A clear sense of your mission statement, to me, has always been vital in trying to understand why you make the choices as a leader that you make. What are we about? What is our purpose? Why are we here? And I think that subordinates in general can sniff out if your purpose isn't rock solid, if you're sort of doing in the moment what gives you the most prestige or what gives you the most, but you're a bit rudderless in terms of the purpose of the organization. And that purpose can be revisited, and should be, as time and conditions change. But it shouldn't be sort of negotiable in the moment. The only other thing I would say, and again, I think it contrasts with the sort of notion of bombastic military leadership. I think there are a lot of leadership advice that I don't find great stock in, about hitting the ground in the first 90 days and making moves and changes and planting your flag and showing your sort of initiative. You're going to need initiative and energy. But I always felt like the best leaders I came in, the first thing they did was diagnosis. The first thing they did was listen and hear. There's time enough to make strong moves. but there's a degree of empathy needed in leadership. And at least in my experience, guys will literally run at the machine gun nest for you if they believe that you believe in a higher purpose than yourself and subordinate yourself to the unit and its welfare. So that's a little bit of a rambling response, but I would say strengthen mission statement and leadership that's more about the team than your own sort of prestige that you get from sitting in the captain's chair.
And just as a follow-up, and I want to hear from Rich as well, how do you adjust when people don't understand that or get that that's that even unknowingly? I think you're correct. I think people don't like ambiguity, and whether they articulate or realize that or not, the comfort level or discomfort that comes with having that ambiguity, I think people don't like it. I think they like some semblance of structure, but it's not, like you said, it's about listening and whatnot. How do you adjust in worlds outside of the military? Is it patience? Is it the listening piece? Like, how do you adjust? Because not everybody has that mindset, understands, agrees with that mindset around the structure that you're talking about, to a degree structure, but also sort of this systematic approach to leadership. How do you adjust? How would you adjust?
To me, tell me what you think. I mean, I come back to this notion of leadership as choice. And I read this one time. It was about writing. It said that, good writing is about making choices. And you can tell a text becomes long and it becomes meandering when people avoid choice. I find that same dynamic in leadership a lot. And so I think it can be frustrating when senior level leadership, the leadership that's above your level, wants certain outcomes, but it just kind of wants more of everything. And that leads to a level of fatigue in a team and the units that realize that, hey, we're just sort of toiling under moving goalposts rather than having a clear and focused sense of what we want. So to my mind, at least, and I've had some success with this in academia, there's a level of managing up where you have to say, hey, over the next 12 months, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do them to this level. And the bill payer for that, the things that I'm not going to do, given the sort of finitudes of physics, right? Like, we have so many people, we have so many hours,
Right.
And we need to run a sustainable ship that performs well in the out years as well. We can't just burn the team. Getting that sense of clarity, and hopefully, if it's negotiable, having some buy-in from the team members themselves, as in, hey guys, this team is about research excellence. That's what we're going to do. But I find most of the things that should be clear are sort of left fuzzy, and most of the priorities that should indeed be prioritized are instead just co-equal values. That kind of lack of clarity, I find, stifles a team rather than leads it.
Excellent. Rich.
Wow, there's so many places to go with this, and it's so eloquent about how you describe these things, Lloyd. I don't know where I want to begin. I think a couple of things pop into my bald head. One is a mission statement piece I really do buy. I absolutely swallow that Kool-Aid with one gulp, and I'm sure Al does too. And then he went to the word I would have used instead of mission statement. You went there when you said the word purpose. In my mind, purpose is even deeper than mission statement. When someone emotionally as well as intellectually internalizes what the purpose is above and beyond anything else that you speak about. What I was wondering about, I was wondering about, and piggyback off something that Al also kind of alluded to. You mentioned something about situational diagnosis. That's what I called it anyway when I heard it. And I was wondering about the extent to which you see the need to develop individual capacity to not only engage the purpose, but to acquire whatever skills and competencies and dispositions that individuals have to be one insofar as meeting that overall purpose.
Yes, sir. Let me make sure I understand you correctly. I mean, the way I hear that is sort of this: whatever size team you are, it's probably undeniably true that as a whole, with all the brains on your team, you're smarter than the individual leader. And so the question becomes, how do you set up a structure and culture that unlocks that collective intelligence rather than stifles it?
Yeah.
And to my mind, I think the military doesn't use these terms, but I do. There's a karmic aspect to leadership, and that's that
Yeah.
people on your team can smell over time if you are in fact sincere. If you're sincere about subordinating yourself to the collective purpose, and if you're sincere about subordinating yourself to the welfare of your team members. And if they believe that, and that's not a speech you can make, that's not a sort of thing that you can just say. It's a thing you have to earn, and it takes a little bit of time. But if people believe that, then they have trust. And that's when you can start to unlock the higher orders of their minds and this collective intelligence. And it's a fragile thing. And I think the moment that you step into a more ego-laden brand of leadership, you can dent and destroy it.
So well said, Lloyd. Yeah.
Amen.
But you had something else?
Well, again, the collective intelligence, in my was one point. In fact, something you said a moment before the collective intelligence, but we have a saying among Al, myself, and Anthony, where we say none of us is smart as all of us, unless we're stupid together. And that goes back to capacity again, of individuals to create the whole big with a W, bigger than the whole, bigger than what the individuals are able to do, and then it translates over to the innovation word. How do you foster the kind of approach among what I understand to be a hierarchy, like not a hierarchy? I'm sorry, I take that back. Where the folks who answer to you are comfortable enough with you to create, not just brainstorm, but create.
Sir, forgive me. Can you repeat that question? I understand that question a little bit.
Wow.
You were thinking about it in terms of innovation, and that's the place where I'm grasping a bit.
Yeah, well, you're right. Because I was trying to make the transfer from the collective intelligence piece over to creativity, because with innovation and creativity aren't necessarily functions of being smart together, but rather having a different disposition to approach it. And not everybody knows how to get a group to be creative, to be innovative.
Here.
That makes sense?
Here, and I think, sir, it makes perfect sense. And I would say most people aren't realistic about their expectations of innovation. So I work on military innovation a great deal. People don't like what I have to say about it, but it needs to be said. Innovation implies risk. Innovation implies failure. Innovation implies that there will be a loss of optimization and efficiency at what we're currently doing. And in innovation, there will be winners and losers. And so people think of innovation as a sort of unalloyed good. And by the way, oftentimes you won't know for a good long period of time if the innovation itself was effective.
Amen.
So
yes.
I think you need an environment where people feel free to take risks, where they realize even if some of those risks, by the way, are not going to pay out, they're going to blow up in our face, and we're going to have invested in them time and prestige and resources to be back at this same point later and poorer for it. If it's real innovation, there's a good chance that's going to happen. I think all the more reason that an empathetic and karmic approach to leadership allows people to take risks without the notion that they'll be ostracized inside the team, or that they'll find a leader who conveniently pins failure on them, and yet, victory has 1,000 fathers, owns all victory.
I got to recommend a book to you. Al can guess the book. But I love that karmic word, and I'm not a New Age type altogether, but I love that karmic word that you use. But there's a book called, use it for your dissertation, The Theory U, letter U. It's by
Rich has mentioned that. Yeah, Sharma. Rich has mentioned that. I actually used that book in a course when I took my coursework for my doctoral work. So Lloyd, I want to first of all, commend you. I'm not sure you have a little visitor there. So you answered that last question, not just eloquently, intelligently, thoroughly, but with the joy of having your kids, running around and yelling in the background and having fun there. Hi, how are you?
Can you say hi? You've met Al before.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing? Hope you're feeling okay. We're live, so you can say hello to everybody.
It's funny. Al, tell me what you think. I mean, I think you all know this better than I do as a new father, but family, it's the same thing, same
Yeah.
principles, same, like you can't bludgeon a family into compliance. You can't cajole them. You have to actually lead and inspire, and there has to be trust that you're subordinate to the unit. And Dr. Bernardo, back to your point, if we're in the business of creating rather than just performing, then the risks are higher. And I think all the more important to have that trust among teammates, and all the more that you need a sort of a flatter team. I would just come back to the notion. I think those first few months matter, but they matter for reasons other than what people typically think. They don't matter for the vision statement that you're like, this team will rise, and you attack the first 90 days. They matter for the quality of the connection that you're able to make and the chances that you seize to demonstrate your sincerity of purpose. And then there's time for diagnosis and time for performance, but that's not coming in the door, sort of swinging the hammer,
So well said, Lloyd. We're gonna wrap up. I'll just say a few things, Rich, and then Lloyd will give you the final thought on this. I heard that trust word so many times when you were talking. I had a former superintendent boss who used to talk about a flat level conversation, and that anyone was welcome to come. In fact, that's how I ended up working in a district back on Long Island in an administrative role. I went in and had a discussion about how I thought we could improve the schools and the district overall. And he had that approach with everyone. He was welcoming. There was trust in the fact that if you tried something and it failed, it was okay. We'll try something else, learn from it, move on, and try something else. And I think that aspect, and how well you articulate your thoughts to others. I've witnessed firsthand how well you've articulated your thoughts here. It is lessons for anyone who needs to learn about leadership in general. You articulated it so well, as you always do, as I've seen you do, but it's great to see you do it live and on our show, so that people are aware of Leadership Lessons for Life by Lloyd Thrall. Really, really great stuff. Rich.
Yeah, I have to say, I so much appreciate listening to you. Very, very eloquent, and eloquence one thing, and thoughtfulness and reflection is the bonus of the eloquence. Actually, you can be eloquent about nothing sometimes, but when you can be reflective and as thoughtful as you are, indicates a deepness in you that would make anyone want to work with and or follow you to do the kind of things that you're talking about. One more book to mention. Anthony gets mad when I do this, and Al gets mad at me too. When you talk about trust, there's a great little book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Lencioni, and the bottom of the pyramid is trust. Everything drives back, embeds itself back into the relationship issue and trust factor. Can't be creative, can't take those kinds of risks that you're talking about unless people trust each other to empower each other rather than to find reasons to tear each other down. Then there's no ideas rolling around, and you're going to continue the insanity that we endure from too many places as it is, so more than we want to admit to. So I appreciate meeting you, and I hope to read that dissertation one of these days.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dr. Bernardo. Al, thanks so much. Great to be here. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, Lloyd. Always a pleasure, and it's good seeing you as well. Thank you, everyone.